Welcome, everybody. Still some popping going on. Welcome to our panel session today. Welcome, Brendan. And while you are coming, already our colleagues from Lepaya Amsterdam are asking where you're joining us from today. Thank you, Marjan from Job Training, that you're joining from Leiden, Berlin. And we look very forward to understanding also what kind of role you have or with what interest you come. So please feel free to engage in the chat. Paris, bonjour, Brendan. And that was about my French skills. Nottingham, oh, it is a very nice international crowd. And a very nice representation of our panel also, I think, today, which is also the international crowd. Brighton, Catherine, nice. Joining from Thailand, Milda. Ooh, originally Germany, but now in Thailand. Does your background have palm trees, or is that a not appropriate assumption I'm making? So with another 20-30 seconds, we will be starting this panel. And I would already like for you to know that this session is being recorded. It already popped up in your screen, but that is nice that you will have the chance to watch it back or share with your colleagues if you find our topics of today interesting. My name is Lisanne Zeeuw, and today I will be your host. I am ex-Microsoft. I am a public speaker, which is why I love doing in-depth panel discussions like today. And I am a lead at Lepaya and learning consultant for our professional services clients. Most of those professional service firms really have strong interest in putting skills into strategy and thinking about skill-based organizations. And we will hear more about that from our expert. Lepaya, where I work, is the People's Capability Development Partner for various global enterprises. And we make sure your people acquire the right skills at the right time with the use of relevant technology to be productive and have happy professional lives. We work with brands like PwC, Microsoft, Schrodenberg, ING, KPMG, who are leading workforce transformation through upskilling their people. While welcoming you all in the audience, and you've shared where you're coming from, what region, I am joining you from Amsterdam today, and I live in the lovely city of Gouda, where you have the best sour waffles if you ever want to travel. Nice meeting you all. And for today, I would like to introduce you to Marlene de Koning, Director of HR Tech and Data at PwC, where she leads the team of HR Tech and Data specialists, helping clients drive workforce transformation, create data-driven strategy, and implement innovative technologies. That's not all. Furthermore, she just published her book, HR Tech Strategy, Revolutionizing Employee Experience Through HR Tech Synergy. We will give you that full title in the notes that we sent after this session. And Marlene is a mentor for startups, an advocate for equality, and a public speaker. She lives in the Netherlands with her husband and 2 children. Marlene, it's a mouthful. Welcome. And I have to ask, what excites you most about today's conversation?
Well, thanks for having me, and welcome to everybody as well. I think it's a very exciting topic that we are discussing a lot, and many of our clients are thinking about and talking about. But what I also hear from the market is that not everybody understands where to start or how to get started. So I'm very much looking forward to today also to discuss this with Alex on how they started and where their journey are, and to shed a little bit of a light that it's not as complicated or challenging to start, but it's actually also an exciting journey that we hopefully can excite more people to start with.
So you're going to help us democratize the process of growing to a skill-based organization. Then it becomes a little bit less of a big thing you need to do in once, but we make small steps.
Well, we can all participate in it. I think it's, as an individual, you can also start on your own skills journey, right? But as an HR professional, I think we are in the lead of really transforming the organization and set the strategy. And I think it's interesting that we can discuss both today.
I'm very excited to explore this together with you. And as you mentioned, with Alex. Hi, Alex Rylance. Alex is a transformation and change-focused HR leader with over 20 years of industry expertise. He is an inclusive professional advocating for social value, minimal digital skills gaps. I love that, minimizing digital skills gaps, and implementing changes based on employee voice and industry knowledge. Alex's latest move into the technology industry is well supported by his strategic background in ensuring people are at the heart of technology change. You hear that we have two experts in technology that have a focus on people. Love that. Alex is a firm believer that the workplace is an environment to develop your skills, grow professionally, and ultimately enjoy yourself. So, Alex, what are you going to enjoy most today?
So first off, I need to make an apology. So actually, my husband is an IT professional and he's on the call, and I didn't mention him in my spiel. So Elliot Brady, my husband, who I live with in the UK. So apologies to Elliot, but very, very excited. From a gut and intuition perspective, I just love talking about skills, people, and development. I just see he's mentioned in the chat. Excellent. Um, but actually, what I tend not to always do is look at the facts around why we're looking at something. But I read a really good article recently by Deloitte where it's talking about people working outside of their job description. So 63% of the people surveyed are currently working outside of their job description. 81% of the people surveyed are now working across different functional boundaries. And the bit that really excited me was only 19% of CEOs see that job descriptions are the best way to organize their organization. So it feels like we've got a burning platform to move to a more skills-based organization. And that's why I'm just really excited to talk to you guys today.
And already very lovely to hear that you enjoy your work so much that will bring those fundamental details in the burning platform that we have together already brings you joy. And that's also nice that apparently you already match the skills that you have to the job you're doing, ultimately leading to happier people, hopefully, as yourselves. So what we will do today, audience, we will continue our conversation with polls. So we will ask your active participation in a poll. Don't worry, it's not too much active in participation, but you need to give us some of your input. But before we do that, we will always consult with the panelist first. So while doing that, we will move into the next session. And if my slides are not advancing, please let me know in the chat. You are as much helping my skills in facilitating grow as we help each other learn. So our first starting point of today, skills-based organizations. What makes one and why does it matter in 2024? So we are already the first quarter in 2024. For many, it is the last working day of the quarter. What makes a skill-based organization and why does it matter now? And Marlene, I would love to start with you.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question because there's an urgency to start now that we're seeing. So we recently launched a report together with the World Economic Forum, and skills and labor shortages are really two of the most urgent concerns that our society is facing today. So if you think about technology entering our workforces at a mind-boggling pace, the impact that we have on skills and how we should work as an organization is enormous. And then we also do a global CEO survey as PwC every year, where we survey close to 5,000 CEOs worldwide. And 52% of these CEOs believe that labor and skill shortages will significantly affect the profitability of their industry and their company in the next 10 years. So if you're thinking about that's a high amount, yes. And it's not about today or the effect of your business today, but it's also how do we stay on top of our markets as businesses in the next decade to come? And do we have the right people in order to make sure that we play in the high competitive fields that the majority of our organizations are in? and that we're ready and have the right skills in order to do so. So that also needs to rethink, because if you think about the demographic changes, the labor shortages, the high retention rate at some organizations, how do you then make sure that you have enough people, but also the right people to do these jobs? And that's where skills comes into play, because you're going to look differently. And interestingly, last week I had an interview for a podcast with somebody else, and he used to be a criminal defense investigator, and then he went to recruiter. And I love that example, because for both, you're looking for people and you're interviewing people, which if you look at the job taxonomy, you might not consider that person. But if you look at it from a skills perspective, actually,
Very
it's a
logical.
great example and it's very transferable. And I think if we start to change how we look at things, and especially with technology, a lot of skills are acquired outside of formal learning, outside of the job. So considering that is really a necessity in order to for our organizations. And why it matters now is because we need to start now, or we already should have started a while back, because it's important to jump on a change train and to move towards it, because otherwise the gap within your within your internal talent pool is only going to widen. So unless you're one of the lucky companies that have all the talent that they're needed and have everybody in place, otherwise I would say that there's some urgency in place here.
I love that. And I think the mobility part, where we really have focus also on how that people can move into other jobs without us focusing on job taxonomies. And your example you're giving is really interesting. That is also really of the matter now in 2024. Alex, how is this for you in your organization? Because you also have already quite some experience in this. Some organizations, rightfully so, look up to yours, Netcompany, in doing this. Can you share?
And just building on the part that Marlene just meant, we in HR have had really good experience of recruiting people from customer service backgrounds into the resourcing team, because actually one of the key skills is being able to sell a company. So that's quite a change. And we also work an awful lot with the armed forces, veterans that are leaving the armed forces, bringing them into delivery manager roles for us, which is really good. But when I look at skills-based organizations, I kind of break it down into three different areas. So traditionally, we've always looked at hard skills, so data, coding, accountancy, but actually you need to layer on two more subsets of skills when you're looking to grow an organization. So you need to look at the human skills that fit in with your culture. So learning agility, emotional intelligence, potentially that thirst for knowledge and learning more. The third kind of lens that you need to put on is future skills. So that's the what next? What skills are we going to need in the future? How can I grow those skills? But also people with a thirst for knowledge. So it's a total mindset shift and culture change from traditional HR life cycle activities, but also from the business planning and strategy. So it's less about I need 20 FTEs. It's more I need to grow X capability or skills within the organization.
Thank you for sharing, Alex, and also making the distinction between like having really core hard skills and what we call power skills, human skills that really empower you in your work, both for now and that are future ready. We talk now also about skills recruitment, which may be one of the steps that goes first in going to a skills-based organization. What are your thoughts? And then we will kick it off with the poll. But before we go there, Alex, what are your thoughts on skills like recruitment as in new persons versus also internal mobility?
So within Netcompany, and it's a company that was founded within Denmark, they have a methodology around recruiting generalists. So people that have got the right mindset to work within the IT industry, within consultancy. But in your first few years, you experience lots of different areas within IT, whether that be testing, data analytics, software development, you can continue on that generalist track throughout your career, or later on, because there is always a need for specialists in certain areas, there is a different career track for those specialists. So it's kind of in the bedrock of the way that we recruit as an organisation, and it's something that's valued the whole way through your career.
Thank you for sharing that insight. And now that we have already dived deep into the term skill-based organizations, I wanted to ask to raise the poll, because how familiar are you with the term skills-based organization? Are you just learning about the topic now? Is that why you signed up? Have you already tried some pilot initiatives in your organization? Are you implementing a skill-based talent strategy already? Oh, I love that. Please answer. It's just one click and it will give us very much insights to Marlene, Alex, and me into what we should explain or could explain, or how can we make this as engaging as possible for you. So we're giving it a bit more for everyone to vote. There are a lot of people new to the topic, so kudos to you for signing up and uncovering something new. And Alex and Marlene, feel free to shed some lights if you see the poll results in. What do you think about these, or what would we love maybe to ask the audience?
I think one of the big things for me is this is an ever-evolving conversation. So we met, what was it, 2 weeks ago to start the discussion. And already I think the conversation's moved on in our minds around the way that we're talking about it and the way we're building on it. So wherever you are in your journey on it, you always have scope to learn from others and other companies. And do you know, it's never a naive question. Just put it out there and ask.
And maybe then you're also saying this topic is ever evolving. So there's no set in stone statement yet to what a skills-based organization is or how it can look like, because it's evolving.
And you may be doing it without knowing.
Yeah, that's also nice.
Exactly. Yeah, I just wanted to build on that, because I think a skills-based organization is quite big, right? So then we talk about the entire employee life cycle, the entire organization, the full strategy, where what I see from the majority of my clients that they start either with skills-based hiring or skills-based learning, or with part of it within the organization. So I see 26% of the people said I've tried already some pilot initiatives. So my assumption is that it might be in one of these departments, right? But even for the ones that are looking to start this, it might be good to understand that you don't have to go through a full strategy at once, but that you could start with, for example, more broadening your hiring perspective by if you start to hire for skills. And then or for learning, right? So that you look at internal mobility or at a different pace within your organization. And if you cut it up in building blocks and in pieces within the organization, and it's sometimes also less scary to start with, because I think with the transformations that we go through as businesses and how we're reinventing and remodeling our businesses due to mainly the changes that we're experiencing also through technology, sometimes things can feel really big. And by understanding that you can also leverage those building blocks, and potentially 2024 for you is the year that you can start with skills-based hiring. And then 2025 is the year that you will mastering the skills-based hiring, and 2026 is the year that you move to the skills-based learning, or the other way around, right? So that you don't have to reinvent all your processes at once, but you can do it step by step by step. And I think that in understanding that, it might make it less scary for people to really start with this.
I think breaking that down helps. And I hope for our audience that will also help us into our next question, because you're actually already getting slowly to the point of when is it relevant to set up a skill-based learning structure. And we're talking about this question with regards to maybe it's not for every place, time, geography, or industry that a skill-based learning structure is relevant today. So really thinking about when is it relevant to set up such a structure? Alex, would you share? And I will be asking you a little bit later on about those boot camps.
Yes.
Can you share?
Yep, certainly. So for me, it is a great approach anyway in HR. So focusing on skills and looking at people as individuals is great HR practice. But you're right, there are different industries where skills-based learning structures maybe are less important, but I think there is always something that you can learn from them and exploring them. In Netcompany, which is a consultancy, there are some really key things that kind of trigger a thought about why we need to look at that. So one of them is when you look around your organization and potentially see untapped skills or potential in people that you're not fully utilizing. So actually there are people that have got a thirst for knowledge or want to develop into different areas, but you're not actually tapping into that at the moment. And I think one of the very biggest kind of alerts for us in Netcompany is when we're still recruiting for roles, but we've actually got capacity in the organization. So why is it that we're recruiting for new roles to come in? However, we've got 20% of underutilization in our consultants. And that's where you start to realize that maybe you haven't quite got the right mix. The other thing that is really relevant with something like this is you need to make sure you have really built up that great understanding of the workforce, the skills that they've got, but also you need to have that business lens. And there's going to be a theme in my answers that it doesn't just sit within HR. You need to understand the business strategy, what areas they want to grow in, and where they would like to work.
That is helpful to do, huh? With the when it is relevant, and it is a challenge. How do you tackle it? Like, what is the first step you would take there?
So it is a big diagnosis piece. So you need to really understand the capabilities that sit within your organization. You need to really spend time with the business and consultancy, understanding what we're bidding for, what's in the pipeline, and the types of skills that we are needing. Deepa, who's on the call, is my talent acquisition manager, and I'm sending her on some training around strategic workforce planning and kind of capability and skills mapping to just kind of bring a bit more thought into the hiring decisions that we're making, but also the long-term decisions we're making about skills, because it isn't just always hire the new skills. You need to make decisions about what skills you want to grow in your organization, what ones you potentially want to divest, or ones that you'd bring in for a short period because they are those unicorn skills that you need for one client or only for a short period. So it becomes a whole resourcing strategy that isn't just about more project managers or more Java developers.
Thank you. And with this research done on CEOs that are actually concerned about the sustainability of their company, with if looking at the skills that there are now in the organization, this becomes even more a relevant topic. On that, Marlene, what is your thought?
Yeah, I would almost want to say the easy answer, like it's always relevant, right? Because I cannot imagine anymore. If you're thinking about, again, the what you just mentioned also about the CEOs being concerned, it's also with the technology changes that are coming. And you cannot have everybody do a master and redevelop all your job taxonomy within the organization. So it is about what are the skills that people need to acquire to bridge the gap that you have. So that goes beyond the formal education. It also is learning on the job and it's growing on a job, right? So that also takes a different lens and different way of looking. And actually in the report that I mentioned in the beginning from the World Economic Forum, there's a study of the European Commission in there that the European Commission like wants to boost skills recognition through the year of skills, because they also recognize that it's so important for at least the European Union to focus more on skills and to emphasize really the importance. And they kind of want to enable to promote a culture that values and prioritize the ongoing learning and development, because also from an individual standpoint, from an employee, if you don't keep up your skills and if you don't keep up your learning, you might make yourself obsolete. So in order to stay relevant and to keep continuing within the to stay relevant for your market, to grow with the different aspects that are required from employees, from the work and how you deliver work perspective, you need to continuously be able to change, and that makes it we need to be resilient and also to grow and learn continuously. And otherwise, your skills might match the labor market requirements anymore. So I think therefore it's super important.
You're actually also saying it will become a bare necessity very soon for companies.
I think it already is.
It already is? Yeah.
It is, because if you don't have the right people to do the jobs, then you cannot move forward. And also, if you keep doing the things the way you did them 2 years ago, you might make yourself irrelevant. Especially if you think about it from our perspective from PwC, right? We have many consultants working at our clients. If we keep on delivering the same way we delivered 2 years ago, then we outprice ourselves out of the market. Where if you continuously innovate, grow, learn, make use of those new technologies, help your clients and enable them with these new technologies, you stay up front and you'll be a front runner. And it goes for organizations as well. If you think about many organizations are struggling with that, their productivity is going down, where the perceived work stress of employees goes up. So how do you tackle that? And how do you understand the challenge that you have as an organization? And then if you want to leverage those technologies in order to increase productivity, so large language models, of course, is one of the most popular one that we've seen arise, and that's now on top of the hype cycle. How do you make sure that people have the skills to work with this? That they adopt and change their behaviors in order to work with this, to keep that productivity. So
especially also, if change is faster, then you can formally educate people, because then you cannot keep up with all those lovely technologies that we're having and growing. But you need to get this upskilling going, huh?
Yeah, and it goes. It is now relevant for all functions within an organization, because everybody becomes more relevant if they learn more to work with these technologies. So it's not just for the technology department or the IT department, but it's also relevant for the HR department, for the finance department, for basically any department within your organization, to uplift yourself and also to start learning with these technologies. So we as humans can focus a bit more on that critical thinking part, where AI can take away some of our repetitive work. But then if you don't know how to use it and you're still doing the repetitive work, then you kind of outprice yourself out of the market.
Yeah, and you're maybe drowning in it. This is a nice cue to hear from our audience as well. Do you believe we will pull you? Your company will abandon the degree requirements and focus solely on skills. It is we are in questioning and polling, so it is a bit of an extreme statement, but focusing solely on degree requirements won't get us there, as you've just heard from both our experts, because time's just going faster than that we can re-educate. So asking you, do you believe your company will abandon degree requirements to focus solely on skills? Oh.
There was something I just wanted to add on
Yeah.
degree requirements. So I think it depends on the context of the country you're operating in. So having a Danish kind of chief company, I can't actually think of the word right now, the kind of head office being in Denmark, certainly the support state enables people to study degrees and masters. It funds the education and it also pays them well doing it. So actually it's really key in Denmark in the hiring that you've got a master's, because that's what the state expects and what you go for. in the UK, very much people tap out at degree level, and that's because you're paying for your own university degree. You generally come away with quite a lot of debt. And this is where we're starting to see people move away from it in the UK, because it is a very different social security background around learning.
Yeah. So then it is quite interesting where you're based. If you're maybe in a Western geography, what is how does the government strategize around it? And also, how does mobility look like? There has recently been an EU report on job mobility, really focusing on how we as a EU can improve job mobility based on skills. And it's early days in this research, in that particular research from the EU. But it would mean faster mobility if we focus on skills instead of on degrees, because a degree in the Netherlands compared to a Danish degree, compared to a UK degree, you would say maybe comparing apples to pears.
Well, I counter the challenge a little bit as well, because I think degrees keep being relevant, because for some of the jobs, right, you need one from a regulatory perspective, or so there are definitely things where you never can lean on skills solely, or if people have the skills, then they still need to get the degree in order to be compelling or complying to the law, right? So there is that balance. Yeah. But I think especially from the soft skills or the power skills, you can look at it from a different way. So with the example that I gave, but also if you think about leadership skills, if you had 7 brothers and sisters and you've done a lot of projects or something, it could also be leaderships compared to what you do in university. So there are different ways in looking at that. Because of the demographic changes, because of the shortages that we experience, there's a necessity to move beyond the degrees. So and if we could stay in the degrees, we would, because humans don't like to change as much and as fast. But there's a real necessity to go through this change. So there you need to balance what are more, and I think as an organization it also helps you think about it, what are more rigid part of the organizations where degrees actually matter and where job taxonomy needs to stay because of the regulatory compliance that we need to meet, and where can we focus more on skills and widen our group of talent that we want to attract, and how do we balance that as organization. And now what you see with many organizations, either they're more fixed or they move into full agile. And that's where I think a lot of companies are struggling with, where you can say, hey, this part really needs to stay fixed. And this part, we can actually become more agile and more flexible with focusing on these skills.
Would your advice be to first conduct a little analysis or have a strategic discussion on these levers? So where is it that we need your basic degree, and where can skills advance in these roles, so that you have a bit more clarity on where this would apply?
Definitely, you want to look at the gap analysis for your organization. Yeah. So what do we want to reach in the next 5 years as organization? So what are really our business goals? Then you want to translate that to what type of people do we need? And then where is it required that we keep within the job taxonomy, basically, and how then could we enhance that with skills, right? And then looking at your current employee base, and then if you understand that gap, that's basically then when you decide, well, do we go for more skills-based hiring, right? Go externally to the market, understanding what is in the market, or do we want to upskill our current workforce, and where's then the potential to upskill? If people already have experience with machine learning, can they also then move into generative AI, right? So can we upskill more easily within certain types of roles within the organization? But definitely understanding where you are and where your business wants to go is a first step.
And I think we would help our audience big time, because the answers in the poll were so mixed, saying yes, no, maybe in the future, because I think we might agree with the 3 of us that there is a balance needed in the answer. Maybe not move fully away, but really allow for opening for skill-based structures. And I think we would help our audience in providing a bit of tools and frameworks. So I would like to ask the both of you, starting with Alex, which tools and frameworks have you seen that make an impact do you have from your experience any anecdotes, client success stories, or frameworks that you can share that will help our audience to take those first baby steps or maybe already advanced steps into their organization?
So I think one of the biggest one, and I talk to my team loads about this, is data, data, data. So you need to really understand your org, your people, the market, and the business. But I'm not going to talk about data because I think I will bang on that for ages. Boot camps, as you said, was something that's really good. So a boot camp in the UK is looking at people that have come from a non-STEM background, have completed a degree. So you could be someone that's done a degree in geography or a degree in philosophy. And it is an intense experience that brings your IT skills up to scratch to then be able to work within an IT business, within consultancy. And what that does is it brings a very different mindset and view of the world into the business. And generally, you will find that you get people that have got a little bit more business savvy tied into the IT skills, which has been really, really great for us. Another tool that has been really good is learning platforms like Pluralsight. So actually being able to allow employees to design their own learning journey. So you could be working in a heavily infrastructure networking space and want to learn more about, say, cloud or agile delivery. You can go onto Pluralsight and do an assessment that works out what your level is now, where you want to be, and it will map out a learning journey for you to support you in upskilling in those
So
skills.
really understanding this gap that already Marlene talked about in a company perspective, but also look at it from your own perspective.
Yeah.
Where are you now and where can you move towards?
Yeah.
Interesting insights.
And being able to give employees the time to focus on that development, and also being clear on maybe what their next project or assignment's going to be, so they can tailor some of their learning towards that. The other thing is just brilliant basics. So you need to look at your life cycle activities and work out where you can make shifts. So actually, maybe don't be wedded to job descriptions. Go for a really wide job description. However, if you're taking baby steps, have a role profile that's associated with what they're doing, because people still want to know, what am I going to be measured on? What are the metrics? So you may well have an IT generalist profile, but you may have a role profile for the project they're on that they can understand what they're going to be measured on. And that kind of changes the mindset a bit around job descriptions.
And then you can
Or
have a baby step going in instead of having the
yeah,
full taxonomy yet.
totally. And
Yeah.
the other thing is we've got quite a few centres of expertise. So we've got a data one, a project management one, and that's where people can go and deliver lunch and learns if they're experts in them, could almost deliver a 101 on what data analytics is. And it's a great way for understanding a bit more or growing your knowledge in different areas in the organisation.
Thank you for sharing such a wealthy variety of tools, because I think going from a boot camp where you train people really well to really small exercises like lunch and learns, which is logistically less challenging to do, is an interesting area and widespread. And Marlene, you wrote a book. You meet a lot of clients. Do you have any tools to share from perhaps both these experiences?
Yeah, I can share a few examples and also a framework that we developed. But I think in examples, one of the things that I also write about in my book is more related also to a skills passport. So really understanding what are the skills that people have within the organization, right? And actually, what you see that within some countries where there's a huge shortage in a certain industry, people start working industry or across industry. So they go beyond the company, because it's not only an organizational issue anymore. It's really becoming a industry or even a societal issue. So how can we solve that from a little bit more of a higher level as an industry and society? And that's where the thinking about a skills passport, for example, also comes to play. So what are the skills that you really have within the organization? And well, like Alex, I love data as well. I think that really is to come to understand. So there's a real emphasis in really understanding what is there within your organization. And oftentimes, if people work more than a decade, we forget what they did the decade before, right? And those are very valuable skills that they could use for the next decade to come. But if we only focus on the job taxonomy and the jobs that people are in now, we might forget. And also, if you think about refugees or other people that we hire within organizations, sometimes we don't build up the history of what people have done in their previous life, so to say, where that could be very relevant for the organization and the jobs to come. So I think that's one thing. Then the other thing is, I think we talk a lot about AI and technology entering the workplace, and that needs to change our behaviors, but it also can be a huge enabler in the learning, right? So one of the things that I also look into is immersive learning. So how can you learn more within mixed reality or in the metaverse, and how can that enhance your skills? So one of the examples that I like to give is we're very bad at doing performance reviews or making people redundant in conversations as human being to human being. And also people like to receive the message differently than the other group, right? So we could practice that more, but we never, luckily, the bad conversation don't happen that often, but even great performance reviews, not all managers are great at it, right? And going into an we all have some stories to tell for another time, I think. But if you go into an immersive learning environment, it can tell you, like, Marlene, you didn't look me into the eye. You did have too many hand gestures. You looked too nervous. You talked too
might
fast.
also look at you and say, hey, you already did a nice job, but if you want to do a great job, you could start with this and that, huh? Getting you from good to great in that perspective.
That could also be true, but I think there's a lot of learning opportunities in there, and practicing on an AI can really polish up those skills. Instead of that, we focus on doing a learning environment or those role plays where people never really like throw themselves in, and because they're too giggly. But practicing on an AI also can make you more vulnerable in being yourself. And then getting that feedback really helps in becoming better at it. So I think those are some of the tools. And then I think if you think about the data and AI and the gaps again, so we basically made a skills framework as PwC, where we look at how can you embrace a skills first culture and the policies and the mindset as a first enabler, and then as a second enabler, really adopting the common skills language, right? And then we've identified 5 action areas that organizations can take. So first one is really identifying the current and future skills needed and the gaps that are there. But I think from a technology end and a data end, you can also leverage a lot of technology in there, right? There are talent intelligence platforms out there that help you understand what is the marketplace out there, and then you can compare that to your current skills set within the organization. Thinking about skills classification in your organization, some groups within organizations will always reduce their own view on their own skill set, where others brag a little bit more about their skill set, right? So how can you also leverage AI, for example, to infer skills? So you classify people with the same job taxonomy and the same background in having a similar amount of skills. So you can leverage technology and an AI for that again. And that can also help you then in understanding a bit more about where's the market going, where's your business going, what is the gap. And that's where technology and oftentimes AI can really help you. And then you can articulate the skills you need in your job descriptions, right? And that's where you can leverage 2 methods. Basically, you can leverage AI in writing those job descriptions, skills-based, and help you translate it into that and connect it also with the skills that you need for the organization. you can think about skills assessment methods that you want to build in, right? So you can also make it more technology focused from that perspective. And then in the action area 3 that we identified is co-develop and co-deliver skills-based training program. And that's, I think, what Alex already touched on, that there are various possibilities in that. And then I think action number 4 is not necessarily technology enabled, but we say boost the lifelong learning and access to skills-based learning opportunities. And I think that's sometimes where we go wrong, because we approach it as a project and then we tick the box and we're done. But
or
actually,
we
this
talk
is
about profiles instead of skills. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then, but actually it's a lifelong and continuous learning, right? Because once you're done with the skill, there will be a next skill and the market will be changing. So I think that sometimes that action number 4 is not necessarily some that we are good at. I think we need to practice into getting better at.
Yeah.
And then the last action, and then I will pause, is really create skills-based pathways for development and redeployment. So where are you now within the organization? If that is not as relevant in the next 5 years, so the importance of your role potentially goes down, where does the importance go up? How can you be matched? And how can you develop a pathway that in 5 years' time, when your job potentially ends, you're relevant for the new job? So how do we help
and adjust it to the new economic reality? Yeah.
And a transition plan, instead of then firing somebody in 5 years and then rehiring later or somewhere else. Think about, if you already know where you're going to, what is our transition plan going to be, and how are we as organizations and as society are going to help people transition?
On that note, I would love to ask our audience, what are your main obstacles? Because we are talking about so many tactics, but what are your main obstacles preventing you from taking a first step towards a skills-based organization? We hope we have, with this, extended you some tools to start from a leadership up perspective, but also to really work from your own individual place where you are. You are, of course, very free to comment in the chat what obstacles you're seeing or experiencing. I'm getting already some mixed results in, so the audience is very split on what is happening and where they feel that they have the power to move and adjust. And already panelists, Marlene and Alex, please prepare for a very smart sentence on answering the question that I have next, because I would love for the audience to also have some time to have Q&A. So if we share the results, we're seeing that there are a lot of people not knowing where to start. So hopefully we are providing you with some IDs there, and we will send them over after this panel discussion. And I hope that also both Alex and Marlene have given you a bit of courage to go above and beyond the low buy-in from upper leadership, that you can already start doing something in your role with your maybe skills recruitment. Alex, you want to add some? I see you nodding fiercely. So
no, I was ready for my quick, succinct bit on the next question. That's what I was racing towards.
There we are going, because that is very relevant also to the poll, and I'll stop sharing it. Which steps can people leaders take today? And maybe then you don't have to be the upper leadership today for a skills-based organization to work towards or in 2024. Alex, what is your very concrete answer?
So my very concrete thing is, don't make it a massive thing. If you go around starting to talk to leaders about shifting to a skills-based organization, you'll end up taking ages before you can actually start some things. Take little steps, subtle things that you can adapt in employee life cycle to kind of change the mindset and the culture is the way that you will be able to make that change. Full stop.
I'm not going to add or talk over that, because that is very fluent. Marlene, for you, and also always hard as you go second, but you both have brilliant ideas. So I would love to ask you too, which steps can people leaders take today for a skills-based organization in 2024?
Yeah, I think I fully agree with Alex, and I think it's about also. I am a big fan of piloting. So if you don't know where to start, think about the part of the organization where you have the hardest time of hiring people, so the biggest gap, or where you think that, or you have a high retention rate within the organization. And then if you identify that part of a department, start a pilot and do research while you're doing the pilot for that department, and while you're learning and stating your hypothesis, then you can think about, well, if this works, and how do we scale from the organization, right? Or to the rest of the organization. So it's also about having the courage to start, and understanding where where it is the smartest part of the organization to start the pilot.
And where you really will have that buy-in, probably. If you mean smart, where you can also have some people helping you, probably.
Yeah, and if the pain is big enough, right, then you get the business managers and others to help you as well. Because sometimes if it looks like more of an HR party, then not everybody joins in. But if the pain is high enough for the business as well, because they're not finding the right talent, then could definitely be a great way to start, and to not make it an HR thing only, but to start embedding it in the business. And I think that's the last important thing that I want to mention, is that it should be a business decision and not an HR decision only.
To really help drive the company forward as well. With that, we would love to open the Q&A, and some of you have already asked questions in the chat. So while you please feel free to either speak up or type in the chat questions you have. And I would like to ask already a starter question to Alex. Alex, what impact do you believe a skills-based organization has on a team's level and happiness?
I think it goes hand in hand, because if you are seeing that you're growing, you've got opportunities, you feel part of the growth of the business, and you start to see the success. Valuing someone's skills over how good you are as a project manager and how can we make you an even better project manager, actually talking to them about, what do you want to learn more about? Do you want to learn more about change management or agile delivery? Really helps people feel that a company is invested in them. And that's what you get through the feedback of asking, how can we make you more happy at work? And one of the subtle things, like I talked about in my end answer, is in a previous organization, rather than how do we make you a better project manager, we ask the questions of what can you do more, what can you do different, and what could you do better? And that mindset shift in answering those questions really helped you grow that growth mindset, skills mindset, and learning agility.
I love that. Ultimately leading to happier people, which is also a very nice vibe there to work and live with. I'm watching the chat. There are many people saying thank you, so that's already really nice. Marlene, I want to ask you the question that was raised earlier. Is there, in your opinion, a match between companies that focus on skills-based hiring and companies that focus on skills-based L&D? So hiring and L&D. Do you believe there's a match?
A match?
Yeah, is there a match between the companies that focus on skills-based hiring and the companies that focus on skills-based L&D? Because those might be two different disciplines. There might be people really after skills-based hiring, but not implementing L&D at all. What is your experience with this? What do you see in the market?
I think for the majority of the organizations, the intent is to start moving more towards a skills-based organization. So to focus both on hiring and learning, but oftentimes there's one or the other that has a more is more important or more impactful for the organization to start with. So the organizations that in generally start with skills-based hiring have a hard time in getting the right talent in, and have a talent shortage, many open vacancies. And then if you go at it from a more traditional way of hiring, you just cannot fulfill the supply that you have as an organization. So they start shifting with the skills-based hiring approach first, where if you are an organization that needs to transform and really reinvent their business model, and you have people, but your people might be redundant because you don't need the skills, then you potentially start with skills-based learning first, because then you want to upskill and reskill your current talent base in order to keep that competitive gain as an organization. So it's both a different way of looking for to the organization. But then if you fast forward a few years from now, then you want to basically have both within the organization, because you want to focus on those skills that you hire in. Then you want to understand as well, how can you reskill and upskill the people that you have within the organization, and already set that learning plan, right? Because even if you hire for skills, not everybody ticks all the boxes, right? Even if we think so. So there's still a learning plan. So you want those people that you hire in for through skills-based hiring, you want a skills-based learning plan for them as well, right? And then you go into the continuous cycle, because then you might not, then you want to rehire them basically. So internal mobility in a new role that you envision for the next years to come, where they learn and grow again. Yes. So yeah.
And it's nice because but it might also you might start with the one or with the other ultimately. So hopefully in time, those organizations actually match, that you have both in your organization. And with only 2 minutes on the clock, I would love to ask both of you for a key takeaway from today that is short and spicy, so that the people in our audience can really help remember from today's session. I have learned a lot. So what my key takeaway is, I'll start, is that change is very fast, which is why we need to focus on skills-based organization. And in order to do that, you can think really big and you can start really small. And for that, we will send you some tools. Alex, what would be your key takeaway?
Love the analogy of thinking big, starting small. That's perfect. Really, really good. Mine is it is not an HR thing. I know I've said it already. It's a total business thing, and it needs to be interwoven into the strategy over the next couple of years in your business.
Marlene?
Yeah, I fully agree with both of you. So that's always the hard part of being the last one. But I think I think one of the messages that I want to leave people with is don't go in the waiting seat and see your competitors passing you by or other companies starting to do it and wanting to learn from them. Start learning yourself and experimenting within your organization and try to be ahead of the game, because this is not something that will blow over. This is something where we actually, as a society and as organizations, have an urgent need to start with.
Skills-based organizations are here to stay. Thank you both. Thank you, Marlene de Koning and Alex Rylance, for being here today and being our panelists. I loved discussing this with you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. You can subscribe to Lepaya's newsletter for more practical resources. We will send you, I think, some, as well as the recording. And you can follow us either on LinkedIn, all of us, Marlene, Alex, myself, and our companies, and stay in touch. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.